So we're changing modes here now and talking about interest, which we did do interest earlier in the semester, but now this is a little bit different situation. So again, pause the video, take a minute or two to read the problem. Let's first remember our interest formula. Interest equals PRT, multiply it all together. I is your interest, P is your principal, T is your time in years, and R is your rate. So R is rate, which is your percent. So Jerry is taking $7,000 and investing it at two different interest rates. So he's splitting his money. This problem is going to be set up in a chart format, just like the motion problems were. So we're going to draw a chart out. Now when you draw this chart out, we're going to have a category here, which is going to be the 8% and the 5% account. The interest column, make it a little bit wider. You're going to need more space there. And then your PRT. The two categories are your two different accounts, the 8% account and the 5% account. So let's see what part we can fill in. He wants to invest $7,000 part at each of those. So the $7,000 has to do with principal. It's the amount of money that you're going to borrow or invest. You may need to make a note about defining that again. So we can't put the $7,000 in here specifically because these two numbers are going to be different. They could maybe be that he puts $2,000 in the 8% account and $5,000 in this account. So how much will we need to invest at each rate? That's going to be an unknown. We're going to have X's in here. So let's go to something else that we do know. Well, the interest rates, those, the 8% and the 5%, we can put 0.08 here and 0.05 here. So putting the 8% part at 8%, part at 5% interest for a period of 1 year. So that's our time. If they were investing for 2 years, we would have needed to put 2 out here. But for this problem, we're just putting a 1 out here. So what I'd like you to understand here is that the first thing we really filled in was our rate. It was given. The time was another thing that was given. So we filled in these two columns first. Now we need to look at what we can fill in here. The total interest is $476. That's more of an equation step. We have a total. So we don't know the totals that are going to be in each of these spots. If we did know them, they would add up to be 476. So this will be our equation part that we'll get last. So the principal is where we're going to be looking at next. So now we start looking at how much will he need to invest at each rate. That's the question, or the unknown. So we're going to let X equal, we can't let X be both of them at the same time, because if he's got 7,000 to split, they're going to be different numbers. So we're going to start with letting X be one of them. I'm just going to say let X be the 8% amount. You could start with it being the 5% amount. Things all work out the same. Okay, so I'm going to let X equal the money invested in the 8% account. So I'm going to put X here. So I can't put X here because he's investing different amounts of money at the different percentages. So we need an expression for how much is left over for the 5% account. So if he puts, let's say he puts 5,000 here, okay, then he'll have 2,000 left here. And that comes from starting with the 7,000, taking X away, the part that he's going to put here, for the remainder. So this unknown is going to be the $7,000 minus X. That's the tricky part of splitting a money problem. So 7,000 minus X. Let's just discuss this a little bit more. So again, let's say he puts $5,000 in the 8% account. That would leave him with 7,000 minus the 5,000, or 2,000 right here. So these are our unknowns. Now that we have our principal column, we can take and do our interest based on the formula, principal times rate times time. So these three things multiplied together will give you the interest, which is unknown as well. Okay, so the interest earned here is principal times rate times time. Because this is a 1, we don't really need to include it. So 0.08x, and for this one here, it's 0.05 times this, which is a binomial. So 0.05, we need to put the binomial in parentheses when we multiply this. And again, it's times 1. If this had been 2 years, you would have to do 0.08 times 2 times x, and then 0.05 times 2, and then do that times here. We're getting there. So now let's look at this total. If he wants to earn a total annual interest of $476, so that means that this interest value plus this interest value is going to equal 476. So here's our equation, 0.08x plus 0.05 times this equals 476. And this is a linear equation that we can certainly solve. We need to distribute here with 0.05, so 0.05 times 7,000 and 0.05 times the x. Let's break down 0.08x. 0.05 times 7,000 will end up being 350, and 0.05 multiplied by the x, you get minus 0.05x equals 476. So now we'll combine the 0.08 minus the 0.05 for 0.03x. 0.03x plus 350 equals 476. Subtract 350 from both sides. 0.03x equals 126. And now divide both sides by 0.03. We get x is 4,200. So now you need to go back and answer the question. Go back and reread what it was. It asked, how much will he need to invest at each rate? So you need to go to your interest column and fill in the 4,200 for the x. No, I'm sorry. The x represented the principal, which is the amount of money invested at each rate. So the 4,200, we need to look back at our chart and see which percentage we put that as. And we put it as the 8% account. So the 4,200 here is the amount at 8%. So make sure you put the dollar sign on here. So the 4,200 was amount at 8%. And remember, there was $7,000 that was being split. So basically, we're now going to do the $7,000 minus 4,200 to get the amount at the 5% account. So 7,000 minus the 4,200. Again, that's why we had 7,000 minus x in that one spot in our chart equals 2,800 at the 5% account. So to do a check on this, we can go back up to our column, to the interest column, and put in 4,200 and figure out the interest at the 8%, and then put in 2,800 and do the interest at 5%. So basically we're doing 0.08 times 4,200, 0.05 times 2,800. Add those amounts together to see if it adds to the total interest of 476. So when you're doing your homework, you don't have to do the check, but this makes things make sense at the end. The $4,200 at 8% for 1 year, so I'm multiplying it by 1, it would be $336 interest. 2,800 times 5% for 1 year is $140 interest, and that adds to the $476 total interest.